And there you'll see in the top left-hand corner. So as I've just mentioned and David mentioned, this is taking you through the logging of a notice of intake through the National Incident Management System. You've been using NIMS there for quite some time, but this now is logging. We're bypassing the paper form and you're going to log directly through ePOE, which is electronic point of entry. So what has been happening in the background with David and Eleanor and Karen in conjunction with your IT guys is they've been preparing for your go live this day next week on the 1st of April. And you will be accessing NIMS and other documentation associated with NIMS through your Peamount Healthcare intranet. So there's a quick links there. And there'll be the NIMS icon. It may not be in that exact location, but it will be under quick links. And in there, you'll have not only access to some cheat sheets and some help documentation, there will also be access to these two links, these two icons. And for yourselves, logging a notice of entry or an incident notice of intake, you will click on the one that says incident entry or whatever your IT people have named it. The main difference between the two is that those approving will have a log on to the system. Okay, for yourselves, logging a notice of intake, you will click on that icon and you will be brought to this screen where you are going to click on add new incident. Now, to give you an idea of the system, folks, I have 3 examples that I'm going to take you through this morning. I have one for a staff violence, harassment and aggression. I have one for a patient slip, trip or fall. And I then have a dangerous occurrence as well. And that's really just to let you see what the different screens look like depending on how you answer certain questions. So when you click on add new incident, you'll be brought into this screen. So there are 2 screens that you're going to populate. Excuse me, just because of the amount of questions on screen 1, I've split it across 2 slides. So this is the top of the page, okay? And you can see there down on the left-hand side, there are a series of questions. Some of them have a little red asterisk in front of them. Those that have a little red asterisk in front of them are mandatory fields. So this is just a little bit, I've been saying this for 20 years, it's a little bit like booking a flight with Ryanair or Aer Lingus. You have these series of questions that you must answer. Those that have a red asterisk, you must answer. You won't be able to save this as a notice of intake until the ones with a red asterisk have been populated. Okay, so just to explain maybe some of these, that did this incident relate to is the very first question that you're asked on this page and in relation to any notice of intake that you're going to log. And your 4 options are person, property, crash, collision, and dangerous occurrence. A person is logging a notice of intake where a person a human being was affected. So a staff member, a client, patient, service user, a member of the public, it is logged under person. Property relates to any property damage to state property or third-party property, such as lost property. A crash collision relates to vehicles, folks. So a car, a van, a lorry, aircraft, like we indemnify the defense forces, so planes, ships, anything like that will be logged under crash collision. Nothing to do with people, okay? So I mentioned that because we have had situations in the past where somebody running into a door has been logged as a crash collision. I will emphasize again, and you'll note that I emphasize it throughout the session. If it is a person, if a person is affected, you log it under person. People involved in crash collisions, there are fields within the crash collision where you can note if somebody was in the vehicle. But if it's a vehicle, it is logged under crash collision. Dangerous occurrence then finally is something that could have affected multiple people. So for example, staff shortages, overcrowding, or something like that. There is no one name associated with a dangerous occurrence. Okay, so again, I'm emphasizing that because sometimes we've had situations where somebody logging something, they come in and they see dangerous occurrence and they say, oh, what happened to that person was dangerous, so I log it under dangerous occurrence. No, again, I'm emphasizing if a person is affected, it is logged under person. Danger is implied by the very fact that you're logging a notice of intake. If you are unsure, folks, you will see that all of our fields on NIMS have a little black dot with an I in it after them, okay? And that's for information. And if you click on any of those, it will tell you exactly what it is that we are looking to have populated in that field. And I've given you two examples here. The first one being the category of the incident, which I've just gone through. And the second example that I've given you by clicking on the black dot is beside your summary of the incident. So this is a free text field where you can note what has happened. And what we're emphasizing here is that it's important that the information you provide is factual, based on the actual incident. And then as well, that it's really important not to put any identifying information. So no names, no addresses, no telephone numbers. You can input generic information such as staff member, service user, HCA for healthcare assistant, that sort of information. So coming back out to our page then, the next field that we're going to populate, and obviously because this is a staff notice for the first one, we've chosen person. For the date and the time, then you can type in, you can click in and manually type in 2 digits for day, / 2 digits for the month, / and then 4 for the year. And when you click OK on that or return, if it's a single digit month like we're in now, the 0 will be removed. Next, what you can do is click on this calendar icon and it will bring you into a month representation of the month you're in, and you can select your date. The time field is the first of the pick lists that you will encounter throughout logging. Okay, and you'll know the pick lists that are the fields that are pick list because they have a little magnifying glass in them. And when you click into that field, you'll be presented with the 24-hour clock in hourly slots, and you can choose 1 hour slot where the incident happened from that pick list. If you want to note the exact time, you can put that into your free text field, which is down here, the summary of the incident. Next is where the incident happened. So you can click into healthcare locations, and you'll note here that I've highlighted this level here. Level E hospital is a required field, and you'll populate Peamount in there. Okay. Now, because you don't have a logon, you guys won't have a logon, and your locations are normally associated with your logon, this field needs to be prompted by you typing a few characters into it. Okay. So once you start to type PEA, the system will recognize Peamount and it will pre-populate. And when that Peamount is in there, then the search button here will be activated and you can click it, and all of your locations for Peamount Healthcare will pop up in a list here. There are 64 of them. If you want to put them in alphabetical order, you can click on this heading here and it will put them into alphabetical order for you. And as you get more familiar with the system, you can use Peamount in conjunction with this field here and select put in. So like we're logging this incident against Mountain View, so you could put in Peamount and you could put in the first few letters of Mountain View and then hit the search button and Mountain View would pop up. Okay. To select this, you click on the radio button in front of it and hit the select button. And when you come back out to your page, then by hitting the select button, you'll see that Mountain View, Peamount Healthcare are populated in those two fields. Now, those fields are grayed out, folks. So if you realize that you've maybe chosen the wrong location, you'll need to retrace your steps by going back into healthcare. You can't interact with those fields. Next, you're asked, did this happen on-site or off-site? And this question is to allow you note or log incidents that may not have happened on your Peamount campus. Okay, so for example, maybe a crash collision that happened on one of the national roads. So you would choose from your healthcare location where the vehicle is based from. You would note it as being off-site, and then in the specific location detail, which isn't mandatory, as you can see, this is a free text field, you can note where exactly the incident happened. Next, the summary of the incident, and what I'm noting here, because this is a staff notice of violence, harassment and aggression, we're noting that during the provision of personal care, the service user was sitting too close to the edge of the bed. The healthcare assistant was trying to assist him into a safer position when the service user unexpectedly lashed out and hit the healthcare assistant in the jaw with his arm. The healthcare assistant was not injured. The immediate actions taken, and that this particular question isn't mandatory, as you can see, we're noting that the service user was calmed down. Now, you guys will now scroll down to the bottom part of the page. I'm clicking to go on to the next screen, but remember, this is all part of screen 1. And your next question is, you're asked who was involved. Now, remember, what you're logging here is about the person who was affected. And I know some people say, oh, well, the service user in this case could be affected as well. What we're logging here, folks, is the person affected being who potentially may take a claim against the state. And in this case, it's the staff member. On the following page, on the next page, I'll show you where you can note the name of the service user if you wish. So we're choosing who is involved. And because I've chosen staff member here, that dictates the questions on the rest of the page. Okay, so my category of person, all of my options in this pick list will be related to staff member. I'm choosing allied health professional from this, but you'll have other things like nursing, midwifery, catering staff, etc. And I'm choosing healthcare assistant. Details of the person affected, and remember this is the staff member, the healthcare assistant. We have a field for the surname and we have a field for the first name, and we're noting that it was Sean O'Farrell. Date of birth, known, yes. And because I've chosen yes, then a field pops up allowing me to input the date of birth. Next, I'm asked the gender, the employee number, which isn't mandatory, and that's been left empty at the moment. And then we're asked, did this incident result in an absence from work? And you have 3 options, yes, no, or to be confirmed. Now, I'm going to emphasize, and I'll emphasize throughout the examples, that you're logging this notice of intake as close to when it happened as possible. So there's some information that you may not know, and this being one of them. Did this incident result in an absence from work? We're noting it as being to be confirmed. However, if you chose yes, then similar to the date of birth here, a field will pop up allowing you to input the date that the absence started. And the whole idea being that at a later stage, whoever is reviewing this, because when this is saved as an incident, an additional module will be added, which allows a reviewer or an investigator to go back in and populate with information that has arisen from the investigation. And one of those will be the date that the absence ended. So the date that the employee returned to work. So a reviewer will come in, they will see that the date that the absence started on a particular date, but for them, they will also see an end date. And when they populate that, the system then does a calculation of lost days. So a field would pop up in around this location here that would input or would capture lost days. That's not something that you do or the reviewer does. The system calculates the lost days and will then bring this incident into one of 200 or so reports that we have pre-built for you. So it will be in a report that's capturing all lost days, and it would also be in a report notifying the Health and Safety Authority if it's over 3 days. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that NIMS does in the background to assist you in day-to-day work. And then finally, the last question on this page relates to the division. And because we've chosen Mountain View, this is older persons. We click next then to go on to the second page. And this page is a bit more about the hazard classification and injuries, etc. So the outcome at the time of the incident. So there's that term again, at the time of the incident, we're noting that there was no injury. And because I've chosen no injury, some other fields down here, like the did this result in harm, no harm, are pre-populated from that choice. Okay, so this is pre-populated with no harm. And then the body part injured is populated with no body part affected, and the classification of the injury is populated with no injury. The hazard classification is exposure to behavioral hazards because it's a VHA, and we're choosing from the sub-hazard type violence, harassment, and aggression, and all of my options in there will be related to behavioral hazards. We're noting that it was by a service user, and then the next field, please specify. This is the field where you can note the name of the service user or the aggressor if you wish. Now, I'm going to emphasize that if you wish, folks, by saying that we in the State Claims Agency are not interested in who the aggressor was. And I'm not being flippant or cruel or anything by saying that. We are simply interested in whoever may take a claim against the state. However, we do know and appreciate that some of our clients do want to note challenging behavior in their working environments, and this allows you to do that. So you would be choosing by a service user, and in the please specify field, which is a free text field, you can note the name of the service user. Again, I will emphasize, you don't have to if you don't want to, okay? While it is mandatory, it's not, the field isn't policed, okay? So you don't have to put the name of the service user in there if you don't want to. Next, we have the problem caused, and we're noting it as being unintentional aggressive behavior. And as I said, these 4 fields have been pre-populated based on our outcome choice. And then we're noting who's reporting it, and it's Sean O'Farrell himself, who is a healthcare professional, and the date that he's reporting it. The local system reference number is another free text field where you can note any local information if you wish. Again, it's, as I said, it's a free text field. You don't have to put anything in there if you want to. It's an historical field where people could note the reference number from any hard copy forms they were populating. And then finally, we have witness details. Again, not mandatory, as you can see, but it's good practice to put something in there, even if it's just none or not applicable, to let the approver know that you've engaged with it rather than just ignore it. Then we click next to go on to the final page that you're going to engage with, which is asking, are you happy, basically, with the information that you've entered, asking you to verify it. You will change no to yes, and then click on submit for approval, where you will get this 7-digit, what is currently a 7-digit NIMS notice ID back from the system. And that's your confirmation, folks, that this has been saved. Okay, it's not gone off into a black hole anywhere, and it will remain the number associated with this notice until it is approved, at which stage it will be given a NIMS incident record number. And that's your first example, okay? Second example, and we'll go through this just a little bit quicker than that last one. This is a patient slip, trip, or fall. And the reason I've chosen this is for you to see how the questions differ slightly because this is a patient. Okay, so on our top page, we're again noting that it's a person, and we're inputting the date and the time. And from our healthcare locations, this time we're choosing green fields. Selecting it. It's an on-site incident, and the summary is that this was a witnessed fall where the service user was with the healthcare assistant while preparing to sit herself into her wheelchair. Both the service user's legs were shaking when she stood up, and she fell, landing on her knees on the floor. She complained of severe pain in her knees. Her immediate actions were that the service user was assisted back into her chair and then brought for an assessment. Scrolling down, further down your screen 1, the who's involved this time, we're choosing service user. And because I've chosen service user, you will see some subtle differences in the questions that now come up on the page. They're all more clinical oriented. So the category of person, you'll have options like client, resident, inpatient, outpatient. We're choosing patient. And additionally, because we chose service user, you'll see that you now have an open disclosure question. This is a relatively new question. It's been included since the rollout of the Patient Safety Act, since that act commenced last September. And it's asking, has open disclosure taken place with the service user and or the relevant person? Now, again, I'm emphasizing that you're logging this as close to when the notice or the incident happened as possible. So again, you may not know. Your options are yes, no, or unknown, and we're leaving it as unknown for the moment. Again, populating details of the person affected. It's Patsy Riley, so surname, first name populated, their date of birth and their gender. Now, this time with date of birth, you'll see that you're not asked if you know it. It is assumed that you will have the file to hand and that the date of birth will be there. The gender, and then you're asked for the healthcare record number rather than the employee number, and who the lead clinician is. And again, that's mandatory there rather than being a selective question for an employee. We're again asked for the division, which in this case is primary care, but you'll see you also have a couple of questions around specialties, and we're choosing adult specialty, and in this case, allied health and occupational therapy. On the second page then, we're choosing injury not requiring first aid for the outcome at the time of the incident. And because I've chosen injury not requiring first aid, you'll see how again my 4 options down here are pre-populated, or at least the harm is populated, and I'll be allowed to make selections in relation to the injury when I come down to it. Hazard is exposure to physical hazards. And again, because of that choice, all of my options in sub-hazard type are related to physical. I'm going to choose slips, trips, and falls. In this situation, from equipment or furniture, but you'd also have from a height, on stairs, etc. And then the please specify, we're noting that it was getting into the wheelchair. The problem cause, remember the service user's legs were shaking, so we're putting this down to a pre-existing medical condition. Now, just here, folks, I'm going to emphasize that all of these fields can be updated, okay, or changed at any time. However, we would be stating that the outcome at the time of the incident should remain the same. I've mentioned that when this is saved as an incident, there is a review module that is added, and it's in there that any additional information should be added. So an example of that might be, we're noting at the time of the incident, the injury was not requiring first aid. But if it turned out that this service user continued to complain about pain, and a few days later, maybe an x-ray was done and it showed a fracture, then that will be added as additional information. Okay, you wouldn't change the outcome at the time of the incident, because the wording of that question is very specific. It's at the time of the incident. Okay. All right, so the problem cause is pre-existing medical condition, and we move down to our injury details. The body part injured is a pick list, and you can make a choice. All your body parts are listed from your head to your toe. You can make one choice here, and one of those choices is multiple injuries. So if there was more than one body part affected, you would choose multiple injuries, and then in one of your free text fields, you could note what was affected. In this case, the classification of the injury is musculoskeletal soft tissue and bruising. We're noting that Ailish Sugru reported it. She's the allied health professional, and the date that it was noted as happening, or the date that it was notified, which presumably, because this is ePOE, would be the same date. Nothing, leaving the local system fields blank, and the witness details we're putting in as not applicable, but of course it could be argued that Ailish Sugru herself was a witness, as well as the person who was reported, but we're leaving it as not applicable at the moment. Clicking next to go on to our verification page, changing no to yes, and then submitting for approval. Now, I did want to show you folks what it is that your reviewers will see, okay, just to give you an idea and the confirmation that these aren't going into a black hole someplace. They will be showing up in a list. So your approvers will have a log on to the system, and the reason that they have a log on is that they are now going to be interacting with NIMS, okay, so they're going to be updating fields, possibly changing fields, and for that reason they have to have a log on so that we can audit it, okay. I'm not trying to put the fear of God or anything into you by saying that we audit these things, but obviously if the freedom is there to update and make changes to fields, then we need to assure you that those can be monitored, not monitored but audited, so that we can see who has made those changes. So there is a very powerful audit tool that our system administrators in the State Claims Agency can see, where we can see what was in a field, what it was changed to, and most importantly, who made that change. Okay, so if you ever do get a log on to NIMS, it's really just emphasizing here that you should not share your log on with anybody. Okay, for that exact reason. So when they log on to NIMS, they will come into their incident intake module, and this lists what they have available to them. Okay, so these are the 3 notices that have been logged, including the dangerous occurrence, which I'm going to be showing you in a few moments. And they will simply click on the folder icon in front of the notice of intake, and it will bring them into the details of what has been logged. Okay, so it defaults to bring them straight to the approver page, but over the next couple of days, when I'm going to be taking them through the approving process, I'll be showing that it is good practice, and they can't really confirm that the details are accurate unless they go down through the pages and confirm that they're happy with what has been input. Once then they have done that, they can then come to the approval details page, change no to yes, input their initials, and then submit as an incident. And any of those important commands, the system will always check that you are happy to submit. And you can see there that they are happy to submit by clicking OK. And when they do that, then they will get their incident record number back. So the NIMS notice ID number, what is currently a 7-digit number that I showed you on the previous page, will cease to exist. And this will now become the number of importance. Okay, this is always an 8-digit number. The reason being that every year the first 2 digits change. So the 25 there represents 2025, and the following 6 digits then are simply a counter. They're going up the whole time. Should this incident ever go on to become a claim, then that will be the claim number, and it will be the number that our claims managers will use on all correspondence, the hard copy files, any court documentation. That's the number that will be included on that, and it's a unique identifier. And what I mean by that is, should we delete an incident, and that happens, folks, from time to time, you may have duplicates, then that number will be deleted from the system again as well. It will not be reused at all. And again, the reason for that is because we can, even though it might have been deleted from your view, we can still run an audit on it, okay? And it will show up in the audit that it has been removed or deleted, and it will show the reason for the deletion. You'll see there that you can also attach files. So any soft copy files, scans, x-rays, anything like that could be attached, as well as soft copy, Excel, PDF, Word, anything like that. And then finally, what will happen once it's been saved as an incident and you have that 8-digit number, it will now be captured in those reports that I mentioned we have created for you. So there are close to 200 reports. I've just given you a snapshot of some of them. So that incident will be captured in the report that's capturing all incidents that occurred in the past 7 days. It will also be captured in all of the behavioral incidents, because it is a behavioral incident, and also it'll be captured in any of the reports that are capturing staff incidents, and this one is showing up all staff incidents that occurred year to date. Okay, but as I said, there are about 200 of those reports on the system that are available to anyone who has a log on. Finally then, folks, I just want to show you the couple of screens that relate to a dangerous occurrence. Okay, so logging in or opening up your NIMS notice of intake, you will choose from your category of incident the fact that this is a dangerous occurrence, and these are the only screens then that you are going to be asked to populate. So there's no me scrolling down or you scrolling down to the bottom of the page. This is it. So there's no details of person affected, because remember, this is something that could have affected multiple people. So there's no one name associated with it. So dangerous occurrence, we're noting the date and the time. Our healthcare location is nursing. And what was being noted here was that staff noticed that the treatment room fridge was not working. Medicines inside the fridge were warm to touch. Immediate actions taken was that this was reported to maintenance. And on your second page, then again, you'll see there's no outcome at the time. This is simply being noted as a dangerous occurrence. That's the only option you will have in the hazard category. We're choosing systems installations, that it was an electrical installation, being the fridge, and the problem cause was that it was unavailable. We are again noting who reported it. So Sophia McCardle, nursing midwifery, and the date that Sophia reported it. Again, changing no to yes to verify, submitting for approval, and getting the 7-digit number back from the system. And that's it, folks. Before I open the floor to any questions, I'm just going to stop the recording. So bear with me 2 seconds.